Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar on the State Safety Oversight Reporting Tool, or SSOR. My name is Maisha Stephanie, and I'm a program analyst with TSO 21. I will be joined today by Sorrell McLemore, Regional Safety Officer with FTA. We are very excited to review the SSOR today. Please note that we also would like to answer any of your questions about the SSOR. Throughout today's webinar, we encourage you to enter questions you may have into the chat pod available in your Teams window. We have set aside time at the end of our presentation to provide answers to your questions that we have received. Again, thank you for joining us today, and let's get started. So during today's webinar, we will provide an overview of the SSOR and review its primary functions and benefits. We will also discuss new features that have been added to the system based on user experience and your feedback. We will discuss the different areas or modules of the SSOR and features of each. As we walk through each area, we will discuss known challenges that SSOA users have faced and guidance for the future. We will discuss the relationship between the NTD and the SSOR and options for gaining additional NTD data access. Then Sorrell McLemore will review the requirements for reporting modes and engineering through the SSOR. Finally, we will conclude the webinar with Q&A session where we will answer questions that have been submitted throughout the webinar. So let's begin. The SSOR system was created to satisfy the federal requirement under 49 C.F.R. Part 674.39, which states that each SSOA must submit an annual report to FTA by March 15th. The system serves as FTA's source of contact information, tracks program activities, and provides access to the most current and historical safety data for SSOAs and their respective rail transit agencies. The SSOR allows SSOAs to document their oversight activity throughout the year and is the system of record for the SSO program. FTA and SSOAs have experienced a number of benefits from the transition from the previous reporting approach to the SSOR module. One benefit is improved data management. In SSOR, information entered and changed is tracked on the front and back end of the system. That means there is a record and information updates that are tracked. The system is also built to guide users through data input and lets them know what pieces of information are required. This means the data is validated prior to the annual support report submission, and there are less errors. Another benefit is users and FTA have a year-round access to the critical safety data, as the system is an active tool. States have access to the system all year, and with the analysis portion of the site, they can easily export data into an Excel format. We will discuss this later in the webinar. The SSOR also reduces the reporting burden on the states. Not only does it bring information that it sees fit from the previous year and auto-populates it for the users, but it also imports data from NTD, which leads to the next benefit on the list. SSOAs do not have to report event data to FTA separately from their RTAs as in previous years. And right now we'll pause for applause. The SSOR pulls NTD events that are reported by the RTAs and displays them in SSOR for review and for the user to enter the investigative data they have conducted as part of their oversight. This reduces reporting burden and it also allows states to view what is being reported directly to FTA by their RTAs. Another benefit of SSOR is that FTA and the SSOAs can coordinate within the system to validate the safety data. Issues can be created and closed, and comments can be entered. Users can review and coordinate within the system to ensure the information is accurate and meets reporting requirements. Of course, with any reporting system, especially a new system, we have experienced some challenges. These include both technical issues and needs for additional guidance to help SSOAs complete the annual reporting process. This will be discussed further in the webinar when we discuss the modules. With that in mind, the SSOR team is dedicated to adding enhancements and new features to the system to help users have a better experience. The ability to import new CAPs in the reporting year, add internal users, delete information, and be notified when a required step is missing are just a few of the many features that have been added. Let's take a look at the SSOR homepage. This is the first selection on the blue banner at the top of your screen. Along the home, a user's choices are Agency Management, Analysis, and Quick Add. When a user logs into the SSOR, the first thing they will see is their My Safety home screen. This page includes lots of useful information and links at a glance for users. You can easily access your pending items, and you have a dashboard of information that is there for your quick reference to many parts of the system. There are also links on the right-hand side that can assist you with the system and its requirements. Now, let's look at the different pages or modules that are in the Agency Management tab. To reach these pages, users navigate from their home page to Agency Management on the blue ribbon at the top, and then to their respective profile module. We're going to walk through each of these modules today to provide a review of required information. We will also identify key challenges that SSOAs have faced within each module and provide guidance to address those known concerns. These challenges are items that we have seen through our ongoing coordination with SSOAs and through the annual reporting process. Within each module, there are features that were created for ease of use and reference, and they are listed on this slide. We will provide screenshots of each of these features on the next few slides. There is a reporting year dropdown, an option to switch between viewing SSOA or RTA specific data for each page, a comment section where users can enter comments and tag other SSOA users within each module, and filters that are available for certain pages to narrow down module data by specific data points. On each page, there is a drop-down option to toggle between different reporting years. This makes it easy to go back and refer to previous reporting years when you want to compare data. You can find this at the top right-hand side of your modules. There is also a drop-down option to view your SSOA's information, then the specific information for each of your designated RTAs. This drop-down is called Currently Viewing, and it is also located at the top right-hand side of your page. For example, if you are Arizona Department of Transportation looking at your contact module for the 2021 report year, but you want to look at contacts that your agency reported in 2019 for one of your RTAs, you will first select the report year dropdown and select 2019. Then you will select Currently Viewing dropdown and select the RTA. There is a comments feature which allows users and FTA to input areas of concern. You can also tag users in the comments, which will send them a notification email letting them know they have been tagged in that specific comment in SSOR. This is a useful way to notify a member of your own team or a specific individual at FTA about a certain comment. The filters are also available on all modules except the profile page. The filters allow users to filter down data they want to view. For example, you can filter by mode, status, ID numbers, and so on. The first filter screenshot is for the Contacts module. These are the filter options for the CAP module. And last, this shows what you can filter when you are on the Events page. Now, let's get into the specific modules themselves. The Profile page includes all the information about the SSOA's general contact, location, and oversight activity. The Profile page for an SSOA will include information on the safety meetings and briefings that are conducted during the reporting year. It will also include any updates to the agency's authority. The Profile page is also where users upload the required documents for the annual report. This module is where an SSOA can upload additional documents that are requested by FTA for further review. One challenge that FTA identified with this module is that some SSOAs have not checked the box indicating that they have transmitted an annual safety status report to the Governor's Office, the Board of Directors, and FTA. Please note that users must check the boxes indicating that they have sent their annual safety status reports. Beginning with the 2021 annual report, the system will prompt users to enter the dates for this transmittal as well. Please note that this annual safety status report is separate from the annual report that you submit to FTA through SSOR. Another challenge we found was knowing what documents are required in the Profile section. FTA requires the following documents from the SSOAs annually: the Annual Safety Status Report to your Board of Directors or equivalent entity, Annual Safety Status Report to FTA, Annual Safety Status to Governor, Annual Spend Plan for the reporting year, Certificate of Compliance, Organizational Chart, Program Standard, and a Technical Training Plan. You are required to upload these to SSOR before you can submit your final annual report. FTA may request additional documents that are not on this list. You can go to your SSOA's current reporting year and upload your file by choosing the Other Document option. Next, let's review the RTA profile in SSOR. This module is similar to the SSOA profile, except for the Modes in Engineering data field. Documents required for this module include the Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan and the Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan Approval Letter. A document that is not required but should be submitted if applicable is the FRA waiver. Some SSOAs had questions about what constitutes a new Modes in Engineering when they should enter this in SSOR. Modes in Engineering will be discussed at length with Sorrell McLemore later in this presentation. We acknowledge some users have had questions about modes, and we hope to clarify what is required in this webinar. Let's move on to the Contacts page. You can enter contact information into the SSOR for SSOA employees, RTA employees, and contractors. The contacts that are part of the SSOA or relevant contractors must also enter their hours worked from the previous year as part of the annual report. This information provides FTA with your safety oversight level of effort. Please note that if a contract is current or if the end of date is left as to present, then that contact will be brought over to the next reporting year and auto-populated for your SSOR. A challenge here is some users noted seeing duplicate contact records in SSOR. If this was due to a system error, that has been corrected, but some users created duplicate records by accident. When you are creating a new contact in SSOR, please check if there is an established contact profile. If you need assistance in deleting any duplicate contacts, please reach out to your SSOR help desk. Our next SSOR module is Corrective Action Plans. The tool captures the information on the screen and provides the CAP status based on the proposed implementation dates you enter for each CAP. One challenge we have noted in the industry is dealing with CAPs that are open and have become overdue. Your CAP statuses automatically update in SSOR based on what you entered into the proposed implementation date field for the CAP. Once the CAP becomes open overdue, FTA will look and ask, what are the issues preventing resolution? Please be sure to update your CAPs in SSOR, and if a CAP requires an extension or you have approved a new proposed implementation date, please be sure to change that date in SSOR. Changes you make to your CAPs will be stored in a change log in the system. Next, let's review hazards, which were not required or validated in the 2020 or 2021 annual report. In the 2021 report, this module is grayed out and cannot be accessed. FTA is working to establish future guidance and requirements for hazard data going forward. The requirements of the PTAB's Regulation 49 C.F.R. Part 673 include safety risk assessment and the identification of hazards or conditions. This approach is different from what was gathered in the past, and FTA is working to determine a structured method to collect this information in the future. When updates are available, the system will be updated to reflect this in SSOR, and users will be notified in advance of any changes to reporting requirements for the annual report. The next module we will review is the SSO Triennial Audit of the RTA, or STARS. This is where you can enter audits that were conducted in the current reporting year, issues that were found, numbers of finding, and the final audit reports. We found that some SSOAs did not upload their report to this page. FTA requests that when a STAR is completed, that user uploads the final audit report to this module. If you would like to start inputting information about an audit before the report is finalized, that is acceptable, but FTA would like the final report uploaded to SSOR. The next module is Internal Audits. This page captures audits of the SSOA and should include the data fields seen on this slide. Please note your number of findings and audited areas. Similar to what we noticed with the STARS, sometimes users did not upload their final report to this page. FTA would like to see the internal audit report uploaded to SSOR. Moving on to Event Module. The Event Module is an important part of the SSOR. The SSOR's integration of NTD event data has greatly reduced the reporting burden placed on SSOAs in the past. SSOAs no longer report events to FTA. This information comes from the NTD. So, when one of your RTAs submits an event record in the NTD, SSOR checks to see if that event meets the FTA's definition of accident. If it does, the event gets pulled into SSOR as read-only data. At that point, SSOAs can review the event data, and upon completion of the associated investigation, they can report the probable cause for the event in SSOR. As an SSOA user, if you notice that the information you see for an event doesn't agree with what your records say, what should you do? You need to contact the RTA to find out why they have reported something to the NTD that doesn't match the information you have. Reporting mistakes do happen. If the RTA made an error in their NTD report, they can simply revise the NTD event record and resubmit it. The event data in SSOR will be updated to reflect the revised data that the RTA submitted to the NTD. So as I mentioned, the event module includes read-only information that is imported from NTD and also includes several fields that require input from the state. These SSOA inputs include the SSOA ID, whether or not a 2-hour notification was provided to the SSOA, the probable cause, who investigated the event, whether or not the investigation was reviewed and adopted by the SSOA, and the investigation report. When you view your events for a report year, you will be able to see the NTD ID, Reporter Mode ID, Agency, Event Date and Time, the NTD reported, event type, the mode, and the NTD description of the event. You will also be able to see how many fatalities and injuries occur. You must then select the Edit icon to go into the event and input your safety oversight data. This is what users see when they edit the event investigation data for an event. Again, if you notice a discrepancy between what is shown in the NTD event information and the sections below, please contact your RTA and coordinate with them to determine if they need to update their event record in the NTD. In NTD, once they edit a record and click Submit, the data will be automatically updated in SSOR to match. Some SSOA users shared their confusion with FTA about the new Part 674 event reporting requirements and wanted to know what events should or should not be showing up in the SSOR. The great thing about the SSOR is that the system makes this determination for you based on what your RTAs report to the NTD. Only Part 674 accidents will appear in your SSOR event module, and you are required to provide investigative data for these events. Now, if an SSOA knows that an event at their RTA meets the 674 thresholds, but is not visible in SSOR, this could be because the report was not submitted to the NTD by the RTA, or because it was reported incorrectly by the RTA and does not meet 674 thresholds as reported. If an event is imported into SSOR that you don't believe actually meet a 674 threshold, this could be because the NTD record as reported by the RTA meets the 674 threshold. Please review the data visible to you in SSOR to see if any of the fields have been misreported. You may need to coordinate with your RTA. Upon resubmission by the RTA in NTD, any such records will be removed from SSOR. Another challenge some SSOAs have voiced is that they are not receiving their RTA's final investigation report in a timely manner, and as a result, they are unable to add the event probable cause in SSOR by the annual reporting deadline of March 15th. Except in extreme circumstances, FTA expects investigation reports to be finalized, reviewed, and approved by the SSOAs by March 15th of the following year, allowing for the SSOA to report probable cause in SSOR. Moving on to the Issues module, the 2019 and 2020 SSOR Annual Report includes issues that were created, approved, and closed by FTA during the validation phase. FTA will continue to validate the annual reports and create issues for future annual reports, and these issues will remain in the system as a record. The FTA SSO Program Manager will reopen closed issues for an SSOA based on discussions during their quarterly monitoring calls. When an issue is reopened, the SSOA users can go in and make changes, updates, or upload an address to address the issue. Some users have used the comments feature to respond to FTA issues, and while we appreciate the feedback in the system, the missing or incorrect information for some modules will need to be updated in order for FTA to maintain the cleanest record of the annual report data. When an SSOA submits their annual report, FTA will have 90 days to validate the information and create issues. The SSOA can then review these issues and address them during their routine monitoring calls and within the system at the discretion of their FTA SSO Program Manager. Let's move on to the discrepancies part of the SSOR. This module is provided to SSO users as a tool to help you coordinate with your RTAs regarding event data. You can think of this as a checklist or a notepad tool for recording questions or concerns you have with RTA event data as reported to the NTD. You are not required to use this module. It is offered as a tool to support your oversight activity. Please note again that this page is intended to serve as an internal record for you. The information gathered in this module will not count against users during data validation, but it can help you manage your data coordination with your RTAs. You are not required to use this feature. Let's move on to the analysis page. SSOR users can also use the analysis portion of the system to filter, view, and export data. After you pick the module and filter for what you want to see, you can export information into an Excel template from the system by selecting Export. This button can be found on the bottom left-hand corner of each analysis page. When you export your data, you will receive an email with the link to the file that you can download to your computer. Users have 24 hours to access this link and download before it expires. If this happens to you, you can always export the information again. A useful feature in the analysis module is that for caps and events, users can select Switch to Graph View, and the system will generate either a stacked bar chart, a bar chart, or a line chart of the data selected. Next, we wanted to address feedback we received that some users want additional access to their RTA's NTD data that is not captured in SSOR per Part 674. This can be granted to SSOAs by the respective RTA NTD user manager. Please reach out to your RTA NTD user manager, and if you are not sure of who that is, please contact your assigned NTD validation analyst. Now that we have provided an overview of the SSOR and discussed NTD data, I would like to pass it over to my colleague, Sorrell McLemore, who will provide more information on the modes and engineering section of the report that was mentioned earlier. Sorrell?
Thank you, Maisha. Good day, everyone. My name is Sorrell McLemore, Safety Officer in the Office of Safety and Oversight. And over the next few slides, we're going to discuss the collection of modes and engineering data in SSOR. We're going to review why FTA captures this information. We're going to provide a few examples of modes and engineering. Then we're going to take a look at a few screenshots from the SSOR tool. As noted earlier, SSOAs can report modes in engineering to FTA through their RTA's profile. This information allows FTA to establish a complete record of the modal systems overseen by SSOAs under Part 674. These records then support the SSOA's apportionment formula by ensuring that each SSOA's calculation includes all the modal systems that the SSOA oversees. Now, what does FTA mean by modes in engineering? SSOA should report a mode in engineering if one of their RTAs is developing a new modal system that is in engineering or construction phase. Now, the definition for the engineering or construction phase is completing significant design work, refining project scopes and cost estimates, preparing construction documents, and securing local funding commitments. Now, for a federally funded project, FTA uses the NEPA approval date as the start of engineering and construction. Now, next, to be reported in SSOR as a mode in engineering, this only includes systems that will be reported to the National Transit Database as a distinct mode when it's operational. Now, the National Transit Database has separate records for directly operated modes and purchased transportation or contracted modes. Now, this means that an agency with an existing light rail system, which is directly operated, is building a separate light rail system that will be operated by a contractor, would be considered as a new mode in engineering. Now, this is because the National Transit Database captures this service separate modal record as purchased transportation. So let's take a look at a few examples to provide some more context on this. In our first example, we have a rail transit agency that operates light rail, but now they are embarking on building a new streetcar system. Now, once the streetcar is operational, the service and safety data will be reported to the National Transit Database under a new mode, which will be streetcar, and it will be labeled as SR. This means, as an SSOA, you should report this as a new mode in engineering in the SSOR tool. Now, for our next example, we have an RTA that operates both heavy rail and light rail. But now they're building a new second light rail system that will be operated by a contractor. This means that once the new light rail system is operational, its service and safety data will be reported by the RTA under a new mode in the National Transit Database. It will be light rail purchase transportation. This means that as an SSOA, you should report this new light rail system as a mode in engineering in SSOR. Now, for clarity, we also want to cover what SSOAs should not report as a mode in engineering. Modes in engineering do not include other capital projects that are not creating a new mode of transit service in the National Transit Database. This means that you would not report a mode in engineering if an RTA is building an extension to an existing rail line, or other capital projects like rehabilitation projects, equipment replacement, or any other project that will not add a new mode of service. So here in our example, we have an RTA that operates light rail, but now they've decided to extend the existing line several miles. Now, once this new extension is operational, the service will be reported under the light rail mode in NTD by the RTA. This means that you would not report this as a mode in engineering in SSOR. Now, keep in mind, when you submit a mode in engineering in SSOR, FTA's SSOR validation team will get a notification. We will begin the process of reviewing the information to confirm that the project will actually result in a new mode of service in the National Transit Database. Now, upon completion of our approval process, the submission will be approved in SSOR, and the mode in engineering will show up on your RTA's profile. Now, let's take a look at a few screenshots to discuss how to report a new mode in engineering in SSOR. Now, keep in mind that all known modes in engineering are already in SSOR, and it's not necessary to re-report them in your annual report. SSOAs only need to report a mode in engineering for any new modal system not already in SSOR. So as you can see on the screenshot, to start, one way you can access this information, you will go to the appropriate RTA's profile page and then click Edit. Next, select the Add Provisional Mode in Engineering link. Then you enter the information requested, including the mode, project name, planned revenue service date, and if it's federally funded, whether NEPA approval was obtained and when. If the project is not federally funded and there is no NEPA approval, you can enter the criteria your SSOA used to determine that this new modal system is in the engineering and construction phase. After entering the information, you click Submit at the top of the screen to send your information to the validation team for its review and approval. Now, users can also access modes in engineering by selecting request management from their My Safety homepage. So we look forward to continuing working with you SSOAs, and I'm going to turn it back over to Maisha for the remainder of the presentation.
Thank you, Sorrel. We hope you found the information presented in this webinar useful. If you have any additional questions, please see and contact the information on the screen. So for questions about the SSO program, reach out to your FTA SSO program manager, annual reporting requirements, FTA SSO program manager, events missing or incorrect in SSOR, your RTA or NTD reporter, issues created in SSOR, FTA SSO program manager, technical or IT issues. You can reach out to the help desk at FTA IT helpdesk at dot.gov. And general SSOR systems questions, you can reach out to myself, Maisha Stephanie, at maisha.stephanie@dot.gov. Okay, and we will now answer the questions that were submitted during the webinar registration, as well as questions that have been entered into the chat pod. If you have a question that you have not entered, please feel free to do so at this time, and we will attempt to answer as many as we can. Any questions that we're not able to answer, we will send those out and they will be available in the SSOR FAQs. And then once we have completed the registration and chat questions, feel free to raise your hand to ask a question audibly. So thank you again, and please stand by for our first question.